Unspoken Issues.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, it's Unspoken Issues. We're coming back at you with some 90s comics. Tonight, we are going to be talking some Amalgam Comics. We've done it before. Amalgam. What a time to be alive. I've got Chris Armstrong right over there. He's going to tell us what we're doing here. Evan Bevins is here as well. Chris, why don't you tell them why you chose to do some Amalgam Comics this go-round?
Well, we've done a few Amalgams before. We did Speed Demon most recently. JLX is, I think, another one we've done.
Yep.
But because something that I never thought would happen, I think most people thought would not happen unless Disney bought Warner Brothers. Marvel and DC have decided to do a reprint of their Marvel DC crossovers in a big omnibus and the Amalgam books in a big omnibus. So, with a few exceptions,
Yeah, right.
They're collecting those. I'm excited to check those out in the bigger format and everything. But yeah, I decided to celebrate that momentous occasion of them coming together to make a profit. I'm assuming maybe the JLA Avengers, when they reprinted that a couple years ago, was a bigger deal than they thought it would be, and that maybe that's why they're doing this. I'm not really sure they've given like any kind of reason for why they've decided to reprint this material. But so yeah, I thought we could each pick an Amalgam book from what were there, 24 titles initially in 2 waves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We each picked an issue, and we're gonna kind of break them down tonight.
I love it. And yeah, if Marvel versus DC, you know, if that right there did not just knock your socks off back in the 90s, then they were like, let's take it a step further. Let's merge some of our most popular characters into brand new characters, an amalgam of these characters, and then kind of go from there and write some stories. So we were obviously shooting for ones we hadn't talked about prior to this. And there's a plethora of these titles out there that we could pick from there. So although we're running out now, I think we've done quite a few of them. The first one we're going to be discussing is your pick, which was Spider-Boy. The good thing is, Evan Bevins, you have been going through all of these Amalgam issues and doing blogs on each one of them, right?
That's right. I finished the first wave about a month or so ago, and I'm into the second wave, the 97 book.
Before we get into this, is there anything that you're gleaning, any pearls of interesting tidbits that you're pulling from doing all of these all at once?
The only trend I'm really seeing is there aren't a whole lot of rules. I kind of thought that everything was like a 1-to-1. The word I've made up on my blog is amalgamath. Okay. I was assuming, there's like Spider-Boy, Spider-Man, Superboy. But when we did Speed Demon, we found out that it was Ghost Rider on the Marvel side and Flash on the DC side. And Etrigan and Jay Garrick. So, and then, and some of these, there's a pretty easy to follow mix of characters. And in others, they're just combining different elements. Like you'll see, not to get too far ahead, but in Spider-Boy, you don't have Hank Pym and Ray Palmer crossed with each other. You've got Hank Pym and Ray Palmer across the hall from each other at Project Cadmus arguing over whether shrinking or embiggening things is better. And while you've got Hank Pym doing his thing over here and Ray Palmer doing his thing over there, in JLX, I found there was a Goliath, which was a cross between Green Arrow and Clint Barton when he took Hank Pym's place, when he was the new Goliath in the Avengers. And there was also a Hawkeye who was a cross between Green Arrow and Hawkeye. So two different amalgams of the same 2 characters. So it's basically just whatever the writers want to do. And really, I think it's probably for the best. I mean, you don't want too many rules in this stuff. It's supposed to be fun. And if you're fine-tuning it that much, you might miss some of that. So at first I was a little surprised, like, hey, this issue of Super Soldier, Jimmy Olsen's just like Jimmy Olsen. Who's he amalgamed with? Eventually, I just learned to lighten up and enjoy most of them.
Reading these 3 issues tonight, my biggest fear, I worry that there is going to be so many Easter eggs that I am going to miss in a lot of these, because with some ease I can pick out the easy ones, but if there's probably a bunch of stuff that's getting referenced that I have no idea about. So the good thing is,
yeah, there's one. It had been a while since I reread Spider-Boy, so I read it again today since it had been a while, and there was one in there that I'm like, see if Chris or Jesse knows who that guy is. Because
boy.
Probably not a random name.
All right. And the other good thing about this episode tonight is that I did not have to do the synopses of these stories. And Evan, since you've got blogs on most of these already, or you've already did some synopsis on these, I'm turning it over to you. So we're going to start out with Spider-Boy, right?
Yes, sir.
Chris, you got anything else before we let him go?
I was going to ask, did either one of you guys pick any of these books up initially when they were released?
That's a great question, because I don't think I did. I knew it was going on. This is 96, 97. What kept me from picking this up was the fact that I didn't have the money.
Yeah.
Really, I adore the concept. I don't think I was picking up any of these at all. I ended up getting a bunch of them in back issues. I was able to find the back issues and plucked them off for a little bit less than cover price.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a fair amount of these, but I wasn't picking them up off the shelf. Evan, what were you going to say?
I didn't get them, and I don't know why. It had to have been financial considerations. A friend of mine got some. I read some of those. I think I got a trade or two from the library. At one point, I saw them every once in a while in back issue bins, and I'm like, why would I not have this? To me, it's up there with the Just Imagine Stan Lee books where he reimagined the DC characters. Some of them are pretty fun. Some of them are pretty confusing, but it's like, why would you not want that? You know, it's something so special. Until they reprinted them, it might never happen again. So it's like, I want something from that time. I want to get them all if I can. And eventually I did track them all down. Jesse, I can probably get you a line on some of them. At one of our local shops, I found an entire long box filled with nothing but Amalgam issues.
Oh, no kidding.
Surprises me a little bit, especially since until recently it didn't look like they were going to be reprinted. I couldn't believe it, but I don't think I paid cover price for a single one of them. And
yeah, shoot.
Probably got most of them for $1.
Wow. And it's strange because you mentioned, why weren't we picking these up? I wonder if it's a situation where I just didn't appreciate what was going on at the time. I feel like if I would have known what I do now, the fact that Marvel and DC are, it just seems like there's a crater between these two. I don't feel like there's ever going to be another story, but they've come together now to reprint what was going on. Back then, in 96, Marvel versus DC happened. Did that happen in 96 or did it happen?
Amalgam issues, all 12 came out on the same day. I want to say it was February 29th, 1996. And they came out in between the third and fourth issues of Marvel versus DC because it was actually part of the storyline. The personifications of the universes were fighting, and basically I think it was the Spectre and Marvel Snap MVP Living Tribunal were like merged the universes to keep them from destroying each other.
Okay.
So at that point in time, it was cool, but it kind of felt like we were just going to get Marvel DC crossovers forever.
There were two.
We even got a Dark Side
Spider-Man.
Thanos crossover, which is cool and makes sense from a story standpoint. It seems a little surprising that you'd have two villain headliners, especially because this was, almost 20 years or 15 years before Thanos got everybody in a tizzy in that Avengers mid-credit scene. Nobody's ever used the words Thanos and tizzy in the same sentence before. But I always kind of thought the thing that would get Marvel and DC back together, of course, was money. I specifically thought, although it's not really anything I'm clamoring for, that if they ever did just judging by sheer cosplay alone, if they ever did a Deadpool Harley Quinn crossover, they would make roughly all the money.
Golly, would they ever?
The first wave was part of that Marvel versus DC story. Basically, it was a bridge between issues 3 and 4. When the second wave came out, they were just thrown out as an event, right? There was the All Access miniseries, but I don't think
that had a little bit of amalgam to it.
JLA X-Men, I think.
Well, they showed up, and turned out Dr. Strange Fate was still around and kicking, and he hastily amalgamed Superman with Bishop.
What a combo.
They were standing close to each other. And then I think at that point he was like, nah, this isn't working, and just gave up.
I remember not liking that All Access series at all, but it didn't lead into the other wave. I think, right? As the other wave was just hey, here's some more amalgam.
I don't remember for sure, but I have it in my head that at some point, and it may have been in All Access, somebody said, we'll make it so the Amalgam universe can still exist, which is what has happened with every pocket universe ever. Remember, Heroes Reborn, we've got to go back. It's all collapsing. No way. Franklin's bouncy ball can hold reality. I mean, Or the Age of Apocalypse. Well, everything's going to end. No, it can be Earth's 8675309. I'm not saying that it shouldn't, because, why get rid of fun concepts? But it seems like every time, only one world can live. Nah, we'll let them both. I'm pretty sure it might have been in All Access, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened is that All Access established the Amalgam universe goes on.
All right, deal. All right. Well, then, Evan Bevins, now you have the floor, sir. Let's hear about Spider-Boy.
Spider-Boy #1, released on February 29th, 1996. The title of the story is Big Trouble, written and co-inked by Carl Kessel, penciled by the late, great Mike Wieringo, co-inker Gary Martin, colorist Joe Rosas, letterer Bill Oakley, and this was published by Marvel. Marvel published 6 and DC published 6. The issue starts off with Bizarnage, who talks like Bizarro and oozes and attacks like Carnage, taking on Spider-Boy at Project Cadmus. Bizarnage really wants to bond with and or kill Spider-Boy. Using his web pistol and ability to alter his personal gravity, Spider-Boy tricks the D and alien into leaving unwitting host Johnny Red Storm and lunging for him, only to dodge and trap the creature in a containment unit. Senator Rocky Grimm accuses scientist Dabney Donovan of releasing the monster, but it was actually Chief Scientist Reed Prof. Richards who did the deed as a result of the evil DNA Donovan has been adding to his diet. Watch out for GMOs, kid.
Is he sprinkling it on there?
That pesky
Be sure that all your food is evil DNA free. Worse than gluten. Suddenly, Sue Ace Storm, agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., enters with a battered Dr. Kirk Connors, bringing word that King Lizard has escaped. Now, unlike the Marvel-only origin in which Connors' attempt to regrow his amputated arm transformed him into the lizard, this reptilian was the arm, combined with reptile DNA.
Yep.
Spider-Boy races to the Fantastiwagon, prepped for him by Dr. Otto Octavius, the mentor of the late Peter Parker. It was Parker who pitched the cloning process that created Spider-Boy as a way of recreating the Super Soldier project. Super Soldier, for those who aren't familiar, was an amalgam of Captain America and Superman. Flashback shows us Parker died due to a power surge it's implied Donovan caused, and the incomplete clone was raised by General Thunderbolt Ross, who commissioned the project in the first place. Referred to by his young charge as Uncle Jen.
Uncle Jen.
Now, they can't all be winners. Ross was killed by a burglar who thought he was more of a threat than his adopted nephew. That's what drives Spider-Boy's flamboyant costume and apparent craving of the spotlight, combined with the lesson that with great power comes great responsibility, which Ross himself learned from the Super Soldier. Spider-Boy arrives at the office of his publicist, Rex Leach, and then uses a catapult-like web slinger to hurl himself to the Daily Bugle, where J. Jonah Jameson pays him for pictures of Spider-Boy to run with tabloid headlines like, Insect Queen has Spider-Boy's love child. Hanging around in the newsroom, Pete quickly learns that King Lizard is rampaging at a nearby pier. Spider-Boy makes his way to the scene where King Lizard is rampaging and growing after tearing through Dr. Hank Pym's particle accelerator. Spider-Boy attempts to use a White Dwarf prototype device designed by Dr. Ray Palmer to cut King Lizard back down to size. When it's damaged, he just tosses it right into the lizard's massive maw with the web slinger, causing the beast to shrink down to subatomic size. Crisis averted, Spider-Boy is approached by Octavius, who reminds him about the blind date he set up with the Insect Queen, an amalgam of Mary Jane Watson and Lana Lang, who informs the young hero that he's just hit the jackpot.
Classic stuff. I will say that this story, as I'm scanning through it and listening to you do the synopsis, if I said this had a Silver Age feel to it, would that ring with you guys? It's not extremely Silver Age, but it definitely feels like, or maybe Bronze Age. It just feels very,
fun.
God, yeah, fun. I guess fun is the word.
See, I would attribute a Silver or Bronze Age feel to a different book we're going to talk about more so than this one.
Okay,
I see what you're saying.
Well, look, evil DNA in some dude's breakfast.
Yeah.
That
it's very goofy, but in a fun way, I think.
Right. That right there is the one thing. Plus, you've got this large monster going around. The only way we get rid of it is we shrink it. I mean, there's lots of the fantastical going on here.
Literally, in some cases.
Yeah. The fun part about these books is picking apart all the ancillary characters that are going to be showing up and what their amalgams are. King Lizard, help me out here. Is this the lizard? At first I was thinking Killer Croc, but I don't understand where the king's coming from. So you guys know.
I'm saying King Shark, who was a Superboy villain. Although I don't know where the red hair and soul patch
Yeah, that's what confused me is like the goatee or whatever that he's got. I didn't get that really.
I would almost think it's a nod to Jimmy Olsen, but it's not really. Although in that one scene where he's attacking the dock workers, it does kind of look like a bow tie. But yeah, I don't know. That's the part that I couldn't place.
Okay.
I want to come back to it. There's an amalgam database. I don't necessarily think it's 100% accurate all the time.
They do have access to the trading cards.
Sure. It seems like there was one on the Speed Demon episode that was listed in the database as an amalgam of a character that we couldn't confirm actually exists.
Right.
After we talk about the issue, we can consult that and find out who all the amalgams are from.
Okay. It felt like a Spider-Man story. I think one of my other notes here was how he becomes Pete Ross, especially when I was going through the whole Deb Whitman thing that I was doing for Superblog Team Up. I don't know how many times I saw the half Peter Parker face with the half Spider-Man face and his spider sense going off or something like that. And there's a nod to that in here.
Yeah.
Doing an amalgam.
For some reason, I used to hate that when I was a kid. Now I really like it.
It bothered you?
For some reason, when I was a kid, I always was annoyed by that. I don't remember why I thought that, but it bugged me.
Doing an amalgam book had to have been pretty stressful. You had to pack so much into one issue of a comic. Like, I mean, I don't know how many people appear in this comic, but it seems like an awful lot. Plus, you've got to get the story. So not only do you have to get the story across, but you have to get all of these characters. And I feel like you got to get a lot of visual references across to show like we are referencing this from a previous comics. I know you've seen this before. It's got to be so stressful to make sure you're referencing everything correctly and packing all the references in at once. So that's kind of all I had. I'll step back here. Chris, if you want to go there.
Yeah, I would have to go back and reread all the amalgam stuff to really settle in on what my, favorite or top, few books were. But Spider-Boy is definitely one of my favorites and kind of always has been. A lot of it is due to Ringo, who is one of my favorite comic book artists ever. Super cartoony looking. I do wonder, like, when they're doing these amalgams and figure out who's going with who, and like, are they just throwing it to, like, did they just decide, hey, we're going to have Mike Ringo do the Spider-Boy book, he can design the costume, or like how that, or were they like, hey, I can't think of I was trying to think of a random artist and I couldn't think of one. Hey, Ron Garney, you're going to design all these amalgams and that will save time, just design all these. I do love Spider-Boy's costume. He would be like maybe the best action figure of the Amalgam characters, especially when you can like throw he's got the webbing, the gun, the web gun, which I think is really cool, and the web slinger contraption. He can have a little vehicle with his car, like a lot of toyetic stuff going on with Spider-Boy that I really like. I like the supporting cast, like he's got the Challengers of the Fantastic basically as a supporting cast, and that's going to be an issue in the second wave, which is another one of my favorites, the Challengers of the Fantastic book that they do in wave 2. That was the other one. I was trying to decide which one I was going to pick for this episode, and it was between pretty much just those two. Just those two. Carl Kessel is the writer, and he was like a longtime Superboy writer on that book after the Reign of the Supermen stuff. I've been reading a lot of those Superboy books lately. I've been kind of collecting the back issues and trying to put together a run of that. This feels more like a Superboy book than a Spider-Boy book. Maybe because he's got the jacket and he's a teenager like Superboy. Also, speaking of the Challengers of the Fantastic, I love that little clone that Johnny has.
Johnny Stormtrooper.
Yeah, who plays a bigger role in, I think he's only in one panel in this book, but he plays a significant role in the Challengers book that comes later.
Oh, nice.
Look,
I thought it was. I thought I didn't read that as he was his clone. I thought it was just like some kind of figure that he had, and he was worried about it. So
I thought the same thing when I was a kid until the Challengers of the Fantastic issue came out.
Oh my gosh!
And then it makes it obvious because that character talks and does stuff. And then when I reread Spider-Boy, I was like, oh, that's his clone. When I was 16 or whatever, when this came out, I didn't make the connection that was his tiny clone.
No wonder he's freaking out, like checking to see what happened. That's hilarious.
There's a lot of funny little jokes. Like one that I really liked was the reference to the month-long storm over the Bugle building because of the headline about Amazon and Spider-Boy having a love connection.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's a lot of references to the other Amalgam concepts and characters. I did find myself annoyed that they gave famous jerk Thunderbolt Ross the great power comes great responsibility. I guess he's a kinder-hearted Ross in this universe.
I wasn't sure who he was. They amalgamed him with Uncle Ben.
Yeah, that's another Marvel character. I don't know who, unless it would be Lane or General Lane, I guess.
I think he's even worse than Thunderbolt Ross.
And there's no indicator that it's him.
The only thing I could figure is that I think maybe they came up with the idea of his secret identity being Pete Ross first, and they're like, "Oh, well, why can we do? Okay, let's go with Thunderbolt Ross. I know, we can call him Uncle Jen," and someone listened to that guy.
Oh,
that just feels so forced.
I'll agree because I was sitting there.
They can't all be Shatter Starfire, though. You know what I mean?
Some of them are just perfect.
Right.
The last thing I got, I really love the Face It Spider, you just hit the jackpot, the recreation of that classic moment in the final page. That's pretty much all I got.
Right. All right, Evan.
Let's see. I thought this one was a terrific balance. I know when we talked about Speed Demon, they had some cool stuff in Speed Demon, but it just felt like it was crammed so full of stuff. And like the art, I mean, was good. But it was just all crammed in there so much. I didn't really feel like the artist could really cut loose. And this, I feel like it's paced great. It balances both characters and mixes their elements. It's not too Spider-Man. It's not too Superboy. And then, they just let it, if you need a combination like Bizarro and Carnage, which is probably my favorite amalgam in the whole book.
Yeah.
Bizarnage. It's a great name. So if that works, fine. But if you want to have Ray Palmer and Hank Pym arguing, or you just want J. Jonah Jameson and you don't want to figure out how to mix them with Perry White, they just have reporters from Marvel and DC and they're not really mixed with anybody. I think they balanced it well, and it's just tons of fun. Even the little asterisk notes made this out like, oh, hey, it's Spider-Boy, no adjective this time. And, of course, we were just a few years removed from, oh my gosh, they're doing a Spider-Man comic and they're just calling it Spider-Man. Why did we think that was so cool? I mean, I was there too. I was like, oh man, not amazing, not spectacular, not web of, just
no
Spider-Man.
Way. This is
and
it.
So there's all these references to like way cool Spider-Boy, outrageous Spider-Boy, awesome Spider-Boy. And now it's just, hey, Spider-Boy. And even though so that makes it work as why there's a number one, but it feels like you're just dropping right into the middle of these stories. That's what I love about some of these amalgams, is that they try real hard to make it feel like it's not just this one shot that's never going to be revisited again. Some of them end on cliffhangers. This one sort of does, but it tells a complete story. But I mean, some of them just drop off. In Bruce Wayne, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., spoiler alert, it looks like everybody dies.
Wow.
I've talked about before and written about how my earliest memory of comics was just grabbing something with a cover that I thought looked cool and plopping right into the middle of a story a lot of times with a cliffhanger that took years for me to see resolved. And that's what a lot of these feel like. I just picked up something neat and had a blast reading it.
Yeah.
And this one is one of the best I've come across in terms of balancing everything, being fun, but feeling like there's more to it than just, hey, let's slap together a bunch of Marvel and DC stuff and see what happens.
I have a letter from the letters page that I'd like to read.
Okay.
They're all legit letters that came out to these. They're legit comics that have long lineages. Apparently, Tony had wrote in and said a bunch of stuff, but I'm just going to read the reply from the comic. We appreciate your sentiments,
you
Tony.
Mean Antonio Stradivarius.
Is that what it said?
Yes.
We appreciate your sentiments, Tony. Rest assured, if we didn't think we had a top flight talent available to make our new amalgam launches the best they could be, we wouldn't be publishing them. After all, isn't that the way Stan Schwartz would have done it? By the way, the new Spider-Boy solo book will be replacing Way Cool, Outrageous, and Awesome on our publishing schedule, not joining them. We realize that our readers have only so much money to spend, so we thought we'd consolidate our efforts in a single mag rather than spread ourselves thin. Who loves you, baby? Give us a chance. We're certain you'll be pleased with the results. This adjacent universe that apparently is adjacent to ours. Comic book companies were making decisions to actually consolidate comics, which is different from what was going on in the 90s. Fun stuff there. Evan, did you have anything else before we get into panels?
I have panels.
Okay.
I went through all the letters pages of these books, pulled out a few things. And Spider-Boy's letters page is called P.O. Box Cadmus.
Yes.
One of the letters, I don't have a lot of specifics, but a Jack Ryder Night Creeper connection is mentioned. I believe he's a JLX character.
Ooh.
Nightcrawler
Yes,
and the Creeper amalgamed.
Yeah.
Jack
Ryder was one of the reporters at the Bugle.
Ryder
in
was.
this issue.
Fantastic Legion is a reference, which I assume was some kind of Fantastic Four Legion of Superheroes amalgam. And then you've already mentioned Stan Schwartz, which is, I assume, Stan Lee and Julie Schwartz amalgamed.
Right.
Also in the next issue box, Mistallo. I would assume is Metallo and Mysterio. One more thing before the panels. Unfortunately, the Spider-Boy Amalgam Database page does not have all these characters.
Wow.
But there is a page for King Lizard, and that is, as suspected, a King Shark Lizard Amalgam. And then Bizarnage, we know that's Bizarro and Carnage. And what was the other one I was going to bring up? I think the only other one was Insect Queen, which Evan already mentioned earlier. There is some other stuff, maybe from the card set. Venom Stinger, Arachno, Recluse. These are characters that don't appear in this book. There was a Spider-Boy title in the second wave, so maybe it's been a long time since I read that. Some of these may be from that too. Also, Kenny Gargan caused the explosion. That's Scorpicon, which is
Scorpion and
Conduit character.
Okay.
But anyway, that's it for the amalgam.
Was Doc Ock anybody else other than Doc Ock in this?
I don't think so, and he's not listed on this page, so I couldn't tell you off that.
Okay. I mean, he looks like Doc Ock, other than the fact that he's a nice guy. Evan, you said you had somebody you were like, I want to see if you guys know who this was in this book. Did you have like a trivia for one of us?
Yeah, my bad. I didn't know who it was because, we had all the various scientists. I looked up who Dabney Donovan was. I think that was just a Superboy character.
Remember when we did the tribute to Stan Lee, and there was that guy who was running around sabotaging experiments and stuff?
Yeah, the literal card carrying communist.
Right. Right. I was thinking of him, although I could not remember his name. I remember one day I pulled it straight out of thin air, but I cannot remember his name now. Anyway, that's what I was thinking of. I was thinking about this guy who was sabotaging all this stuff that Reed's doing. It's so funny that Reed looks back at the reader and he's like, no one suspects it was I who set Bizarro free. And then you're like, oh, Reed, what are you doing? And then it turns out he's getting a little evil DNA put in his Frosted Flakes. Oh, it's too funny. Did you find the guy you were talking about?
I did not. Sorry about that.
That's all right. No big deal. It's not like there's not enough people to go through here in this book to try and figure out who it is. Like J. Jonah Jameson's.
Yeah.
So there wasn't.
Yeah, Tana Moon was a reporter in Superboy.
I remember her being in there.
Probably the most unexpected was the combination of Dan Turpin and Bucky Barnes.
Right. Not the only sort of kaiju book we're going to be talking about either, which is kind of interesting. All right. Well, as you guys are ready, we'll pick panels. Let's pick panels.
I'm ready.
This is your book, Chris, so you get to pick your panel first.
Yeah, page 3, panel 3 is Spider-Boy shooting his web shooter and Bizarnage letting it pass right through him. We didn't mention it story-wise. He says, almost like my web shooter had a mind of its own. So I'm wondering if that's supposed to be like when he had the Venom symbiote. I like that image of Bizarnage opening up and letting the web fly right through him.
Can we talk about the viscosity of the webs, or should we just leave that as it is? That is not McFarlane webs there at all. That looks like just a bunch of tentacle goo coming out of that gun, which maybe that's what it is. Maybe it retracts. I don't know.
I think that's more of just like Ringo's style. It's more just simple and
kind
of cartoony looking.
Evan, you pick.
Okay, I got to go with that last panel revealed, the Mary Jane Watson, the Insect Queen. That's just an awesome callback. And yeah, I do know Lana Lang turned into the Insect Queen at some point. Great amalgam, great reveal. Because that was I don't know if you read any of the early Spider-Man issues. MJ was the blind date. Aunt May kept trying to set him up on. He's like, oh no, not this girl. And he kept missing her, and he didn't see her face for a long time. And then I think it was on the last panel, she was revealed and said, face it, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot.
Yeah, it's a great callback. There's a lot of great callbacks to each of these books. The clones, specifically, I love how that kind of worked its way in here. You got to pay respect to what it's all based on.
Found it.
What is it?
Professor Yats.
Professor Yats.
It's when he's at the Daily Bugle and he's quickly transforming into Pete Ross. He says, good thing Professor Yats gave me his matter transformer before he disappeared. That was the one I did not get the reference.
I do not know.
Okay. Worth a try, and it interrupted the flow of what we were doing.
Well, my panel's an easy one. If you're not picking miniature Johnny Stormtrooper clone, I don't know what you're doing.
I was thinking it, but still give the edge to the Insect Queen, and I kind of figured you might.
I'll take it. And now that I know that it's not a figure, it's a person. Thumbs up. It's a clone, a miniature clone.
Yeah, so are we prepared to discuss the personhood of clones? And
not today. Anyway, there you go. There's my panel. All right, moving on. Here we go. We're going to get into Iron Lantern. This is the one that I chose. Honestly, I think the reason I chose is because I never read it before. Okay. All right. You have the floor, Evan Bevins.
All right. Iron Lantern #1. Showdown at Stark Aircraft. Writer, Kurt Busiek. Penciler, Paul Smith. Inked by Al Williamson, Andrew Pipoy, Greg Adams, Bob McLeod, Tom Palmer, Al Milgram, and Smith himself. Colors, Christy Scheel and Digital Chameleon. Letters, Richard Starkings and Comicraft AD. It was another Marvel published effort and released on April 2nd, 1997. The issue opens with a green and yellow armored figure streaking through space toward Oa, the living planet. He's transporting Hector, the highly evolved creature totally oriented on revenge, to prison on Oa. Although Iron Lantern works for and utilizes the powers granted by the living planet, he doesn't fully understand the nature of the whole operation. Back on Earth at Stark Aircraft outside Coast City, a mix of Iron Man and Green Lantern supporting cast members are becoming concerned because the boss, Hal Stark, hasn't shown up for an important test flight. Stuart Rhodes and Happy Kalmaku know Hal leads a double life as Iron Lantern, but brash test pilot Pepper Ferris is unaware. Returning to Earth, Iron Lantern flashes back to his origin, in which he was summoned by a dying alien to receive his power. He crashed short of the ship and had to use the technology in it, including a lantern-like power battery, to build a suit of armor to save his life. His exposition is interrupted by the discovery that the experimental jet Pepper is flying has malfunctioned and is about to crash. Iron Lantern saves her, and both are convinced the craft was the target of sabotage. The senator who came to observe the test isn't impressed with the jet's performance, nor the fact that Stark allowed a woman to fly it.
No, boy.
He says this in front of Pepper, who happens to be his daughter. She storms out, and the senator sends his aide, Kyle O'Brien, to find her. O'Brien's got his own agenda, so he's not around to witness Carol's transformation into Madame Sapphire. She soon awakens a mechanized monster called Great White. Hal Stark dons his armor and takes the fight to the massive Robo-Shark, only to get blindsided by Madame Sapphire. He lets her think she's gotten the best of him until he can use a green energy construct to rocket Great White into space, where he embiggens himself for full-on kaiju throwdown.
Yeah.
Madame Sapphire abducts her sexist senator sire, while Stewart and Happy track down O'Brien, who once replaced Iron Lantern as the Green Guardsman and wants to make that a permanent role. But, angered by Happy repeatedly calling him a substitute, O'Brien gains the upper hand and manages to knock both of Hal's buddies out. Then he absconds with the power battery, causing Iron Lantern to lose power and shrink back to normal size. Lantern allows himself to be swallowed by Great White and uses the last of his power to detonate the bot from within. Then he drifts back into the atmosphere and begins to plummet toward Earth. Meanwhile, on the dark side of the moon, the mastermind of all this trouble is revealed, Mandarinestro. Now, there's no way I can make that name sound cool. I'm sorry. It's a great reveal. It's a great combination.
Mandarinestro, who has all those rings on his hands, which would be the 10 rings, ladies and gentlemen.
It didn't stop at putting one ring on it.
So the 10 rings of the Mandarin. Oh, I'm Mandarinestro, excuse me. Iron Lantern. Okay, so this was my book. Like I said, I'd never read it. Is this the Bronze Age feel you're talking about, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I can see it now. Honestly, this book started out really kind of a drag for me. I was like, oh my gosh. Now, granted, I was trying to fit all three of these in. So, my patience may have grew a little bit thin because I was like, okay, I got to cram these in here. But I think this is also one of those situations where they're trying to pay tribute. This feels like an early issue of Iron Man to me. It feels, and I guess Green Lantern at the same time. They're trying to make sure that we've got to spend some time with Hal Stark's civilian life as a pilot and the supporting cast, which was quite a bit. I love the thought of Oa, the living planet. I thought that was pretty cool. Who is it? Mogo? Isn't Mogo like a living planet in DC? Yeah. Because no one associates, or what is it? Mogo doesn't
socialize.
Right. Yeah, it's a great story. Absolutely. What do you think? I got to get Evan Bevins' thoughts on Hector.
It was fantastic. You're mentioning that because I didn't care for MODOK and Marvel Snap. I love that MODOK exists. That MODOK is originally a Captain America villain, which is the least likely nemesis for a giant floating sci-fi head. I don't have a fascination with MODOK that some people do. I think a lot of people maybe ironically like MODOK. I'm glad weird crap like MODOK exists. Because that shows the breadth of the Marvel universe. But he just doesn't do a lot for me. I feel like he's supposed to be an automatic punchline when he shows up. And I'm like, he's not that funny. And he's not that threatening. But to combine Hector Hammond with the only character in Marvel or DC with a bigger head than him is pretty good. And the highly evolved creature totally oriented on revenge, that's some good acronyming.
Right. That is right. I don't know.
That's great.
I don't know much about, is it Star Sapphire that is merging here with Pepper?
There's actually three characters here. Yeah, Pepper Potts and Carol Ferris. There's a little bit of a flip-flop here because Carol Ferris owned the aircraft place and Hal Jordan was her test. So this is Pepper Potts and Carol Ferris, and then Carol Ferris had a tendency to turn into Star Sapphire, who was later revealed to be an avatar of one of the 58 different colored lantern corps, the Violet Lanterns. It's Pepper Potts and Carol Ferris, and then when she turns into Madame Sapphire, it's Star Sapphire and Madame Mask, who was a foe and love interest of Tony Stark.
Iron Man, right?
But I mean, pretty much any female is at the very least a lust interest of Tony Stark. So,
so that makes sense now with Madame Mask as to why she's acting like a villain, because she becomes this person and she is. She's obviously had a run-in with Hal Stark before because he immediately recognizes who she is. I think it's hilarious that she's about to go whip her own father's butt because what he was acting towards her. What did you call him? The sexist?
Her sexist senator sire.
That's good stuff, Evan. You need to look into writing for a living or something.
Thinking about it.
Okay. Now, the other thing that I have here as far as my notes go is that I love our kaiju throwdown. I think it's great, but I really wish it would have happened on the surface instead of in space. But I get probably why they had to take it into space. Gigantic robotic shark and Iron Lantern figuring out a way to... What does he do? He just keeps stacking armor upon himself to where he's that big, if I remember correctly.
He just makes a giant construct.
And he just goes at it against this shark, which is hilarious. This is a great way to end it with a cliffhanger. His suit is melting as he's re-entering the atmosphere. And then we get, how do we not have the Mandarin crossed over with somebody? It's one of Hal Jordan's greatest villains with Sinestro. That was just something that begged to happen. But we only get a little taste. We just get to see him in that final panel. I think that's all I have for my notes. Go ahead, Chris. What do you got?
I really I'm assuming Paul Smith was an X-Men artist, right?
I don't recognize the name.
I think he was on it. I only know this because I've heard Liefeld talk about it on his podcast. This may be the only thing I've ever read that he's done the art on. He's pretty good, not remarkable. It's definitely not a 90s style art, and that kind of lends it, it's kind of perfect for, again, like a Bronze Age style of a story. Mm-hmm. I like the design of the Iron Lantern. I think it looks mostly like Iron Man, and it tends to be more, Hal Stark seems more like Tony Stark than Hal Jordan to me. But I really like the design of the like you said, the Hector Hammond MODOK. That's like the perfect combination. And yeah, excellent acronyming. I'm curious about the Human Lantern. They drop a reference to that in there. And apparently he appears in Super Soldier Man of War #1.
That's in the second wave too. I haven't gotten to that one yet.
But just the idea of Iron Lantern and the Golden Age Human Lantern character, that's interesting. Not sure about Green Guardian or the Green Guardsman's lineage. On the Amalgam site, he's listed as being Guy Gardner and a guardsman, like a vault guardsman, I guess.
A vault guardsman?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is kind of what he looks like when they show the flashback image of him. Or it's like an overlaying image of him.
Yeah.
He's called Kyle O'Brien, which made me think Kyle Rayner. He's also a replacement. I guess Guy and Kyle were both replacements for Hal.
He does look a lot like Guy.
Yeah, he has the red hair, but later there's a scene where the senator is calling for the door to be knocked down to his office, and he yells, "Gardner, Guyrich." Gardner with him. So that seemed more like Henry Guyrich and Guy Gardner were maybe his bodyguards. It's on the Amalgam page. We know that it's not 100% accurate
right.
from our last episode. Maybe I just prefer to think Kyle's in there somewhere, even though he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
It kind of pains me to say this is one of my least favorite Amalgam books because it is Kurt Busiek, who is probably my favorite, along with maybe Ed Brubaker, probably my favorite two comic book writers. He does construct a great comic book story, and it really shows, especially at the end when like there's all these dangling plot threads that obviously are never going to be resolved. But there's the stuff with the Green Guardian character. There's the stuff with Madame Mask or with Madame Sapphire. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yep. And of course, Bender and Estro, which is a genius combination of the names and nothing else. So it's a really well constructed story that has a number of great cliffhangers. Overall, not as entertaining as some of the other Amalgam books for me, but I still like it.
Okay. All right, Evan, you're up, man.
I remember this is one of the ones that I read a while back in a trade, and I love Kurt Busiek. Out of the 15 or 16 Amalgam issues I've read so far, this might be my favorite.
Okay.
I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's one of the best balanced of all of them. It's got, it feels like it's coming from, even though it's the first issue, it feels like it's coming from another title. I think it's Showcase of Suspense, the combination of Tales of Suspense where Iron Man first appeared and Showcase where Hal Jordan first appeared. And it's got so many elements that are so well balanced. The art doesn't blow me away in most cases, but it just fits perfectly. I love the design of Iron Lantern, definitely more Iron Man than Green Lantern. And I did wonder if his armor wouldn't be more powerful if it didn't have so much yellow on it. I think the combination of the origins is perfect. I like the way the characters are combined. Initially, it didn't make sense. Like, okay, why would you combine these two characters? Or why do you have one Marvel character and 6 DC characters mixed in? But this one, the Amalgamath all works for me, with the exception of Madame Sapphire. It's all a one-to-one thing, which is not a requirement, but it just all goes so smoothly to me. And where some of the Amalgam issues can feel like way too much stuff crammed in, there's just enough in this. You can tell Busiek's having fun with it and nodding a lot to the past. I mean, it didn't even bug me that there's no explanation as to his connection to the Tony Stark that showed up in Bruce Wayne, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh.
He designs all of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s tech. I'm sure they're brothers or something.
Right.
But I don't know. Like I said, it's weird. I thought this one was just the first time I read it. I read it for my blog the night before you sent us the thing saying Iron Lantern was your pick, and I'm like, oh, that's great, because I really enjoyed it.
Sorry.
Okay, man.
I was going to point out a few things from the letters page.
Oh, yeah.
Which is called Socket to Oa.
Socket to Oa.
They mention the creators of Iron Lantern, Archie Broom and Gil Heck, which I'm assuming Gil Heck is Gil Kane and Don Heck, and then probably Archie Goodwin. I don't know who Broom is.
Shoot. Yeah, hang on. I'm blanking on the name. John Broom. He was a writer. Along with Gil Kane, he co-created Sinestro.
Okay.
Oh, okay. All right.
They list some villains in one of the letters, Black Brand and the Sonic Corn. I'm not sure who those are.
It's Black Hand and...
Oh, that makes sense.
Black Hand and... What would be... Black Hand's the DC villain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other word was brand.
Yeah.
It's got to be Marvel something. The only thing that's coming to mind is
Yeah,
Star
well,
Brand, but
there are characters named Brand in Marvel. I mean, there's Abigail Brand, but she wasn't
Yeah.
around then. Black Brand. Oh, got blank. Black Brand Firebrand
okay. All right.
is Iron Man villain. Okay.
Got it. Anything else in there?
I was looking to see if I could figure out what Sonic Horn is.
Oh, we got to figure that one out.
It's
Nothing on the
and Sonar. And I only know that because I'm reading it. I don't know who Sonar is, but it's a DC character.
I definitely know who
Gotcha.
Unicorn is.
He's Green Lantern. He shows up in a Kyle Rayner era Lantern book I read a couple of weeks ago. That's another one of those older series I'm reading through. Iron Lantern was sharing Showcase of Suspense with Aquamariner before he got his own title here.
And I'm pretty sure didn't Iron Man share Tales of Suspense with Namor?
That makes sense, but that's probably the case. There's a reference in one of the letters to a storyline. Hal's brother Jim, his wife Bethany, thinks Jim is Iron Lantern. She suspects that. And then Hal's arch competitor is Olivia Stane. I'm not sure who Olivia is, but obviously Obadiah Stane would be the Iron Man part of that.
Right.
Olivia Reynolds of the DC universe.
Gotcha.
I don't know who that is.
Huh.
All right, that's all I got.
That's all you got? All right.
Yep.
All right. It's panel time. All right, Evan. Nope. This was my pick. You guys know what I pick? I'm picking a large robotic shark with a rocket strapped to its back. That was mainly just because there was a lot of neat things to pick, but nothing really that I really dug the battle. But I think the most fun that I had was just watching this shark being shot into space by this construct rocket. What's the name of the shark? Great White screaming as he's being shot into nothingness there. Anyway, there you go. Great White with the Iron Lantern construct rocket struck to his back. So, all right. I can't remember who went last time, but I'll just go. Evan, what do you got?
Well, there's a lot of cool stuff. I love the Iron Lantern design, but the one I keep coming back to is the top left first panel on page 7, where Pepper hears her dad going, "I can't believe you let a woman fly that plane." The look on her face. I mean, you've also got Hal Stark looking like, I don't know, Clark Gable or Howard Hughes or something. I mean, you've got him looking like he emerged straight from the 70s.
Yeah.
Which I know is later than Clark Gable, but point is, it's a throwback style. The look on Pepper's face is just, I mean, you don't even need to see the next panel where she's shrieking, "How dare you!" Just, you know that trouble is coming.
Oh yeah. Good pick. All right, Chris, what do you got?
I'm going to go with the flashback panel showing the original Iron Lantern
Good
armor.
pick. Yeah. That's a good one.
Mostly looks like a green version of the original gold Iron Man armor, but it also has the lantern symbol on it.
Yeah, looks good. All right, let's get into the next one. And that is going to be, I think this is my favorite one, Lobo the Duck. And Chris, unless you got something ahead of time, I'm going to turn it over to Evan. All right, Evan, Lobo the Duck.
All right. For better or worse, this was my pick. Script, Lobo the Duck, #1. There was no title. Script, Alan Grant. Penciler, Val. I should have looked up how to pronounce it. Simics? Sure.
Yeah.
Inks, Ray Crissing. Colorist, Francesco Ponzi. Separations, Shock Studios. Letter, Bill Oakley. This was released on April 2nd, 1997. The main duck surveys a decimated Manhattan around him. We learn he was hired by the Offending Society to help them defeat an unknown villain who was destroying major cities and using villains from other Amalgam stories like Thanocide and Green Skull as pawns. Lobo is about the only one left standing as Dr. Strangefate, Skulk, the intriguingly named Vicky Valkyrie, and the even more intriguingly named Hawk were killed in a massive explosion. Nothing's left of Darkclaw and Spider-Boy except their shadows, leaving Lobo and his pet/sidekick, the Impossible Dog, pretty much alone in the blast zone, except for a man who identifies the mystery villain as Kid Lee. With the fate of Earth in his hands, Lobo decides to get a beer from Al Forbush's subterranean diner. There he encounters Ambush the Lunatic, who is hunting the same mysterious figure as Lobo. When Ambush threatens the smaller bounty hunter to stay out of his way, Lobo responds by beating him senseless, then biting through his arm and eating him. The scantily clad ladies who accompanied Ambush are impressed and start showering Lobo with kisses. An interlude takes us to high-tech gravity labs, where some armored goons steal a gravity machine from 2 technicians resigned to their lot in life as expendable extras. Lobo's girlfriend, Beverleen, arrives at Al's and catches Lobo being handled by the 2 ladies, then proceeds to literally kick him out of the establishment. Lobo managed to snag a supervillain directory, but it contains no mention of Kid Lee. Soon, he's accosted by the trio of Jonas Turnip, Gammarola, and Billy the Millie. Jonas knows who's behind the city's exploding, but before he can reveal the secret, he's brutally attacked by his brother, Daryl Rutabaga. As they fight it out, Lobo invites Gammarola and Billy to join him in a game of sardines. Beverleen tracks Lobo down to forgive him, only to find him on a discarded mattress in an alley with the 2 lady bounty hunters. She beats him to a pulp again, and he decides that the identity of the mystery villain is somehow locked away in his head. An asterisk editor's note confirms he was the victim of an amnesia block in giant-sized Bat Thing number 3. Lobo finds this information by threatening his reflection in a nearby window. On the next page, the mastermind is revealed. It's the Gold Kidney Lady, a mix of the Kidney Lady, who I'd forgotten from the original Howard the Duck series, and Gold Star, Booster Gold's sister, who seemed perfectly nice in the comics Jesse and I read.
Wait, I didn't know that. Oh, unbelievable.
Yeah. Apparently, she's on a quest to rid the universe of evil by cleansing improperly functioning kidneys. Lobo arrives and opens fire, attempting to stop her from activating the gravitonometer, which is a thing her kidnoids stole from those poor doomed extras. After he shoots her repeatedly with his automatic weapons, she falls on the switch and activates it. In a final splash page, the device begins pulling the moon toward the Earth.
Beautiful. So, I mean, I had a great time with this. Evan, I mean, look, you sounded like you regretted trying for better or worse is what you said.
Well, this was the backup, right?
I think I should have picked Iron Lantern and you should have picked Lobo the
That's probably correct.
Did you prefer this to Generation Hex, which was your original?
Yes, I absolutely. I have some good things to say about this.
Okay. All right.
This I was just disappointed with some aspects of it. Generation Hex, I was like, that's a fantastic name. Moving on. I mean, I love Howard the Duck. I've made no secret of that, and I always have to add my qualification here that if you only know Howard the Duck from the movie, and no offense to anybody who enjoyed the movie, I certainly enjoy Leah Thompson, but you don't know Howard the Duck. Howard the Duck in the comics is hilarious and somehow emotional and compelling in the midst of all this ridiculousness. And I think that's what I felt was missing here. Like the crazy comedy and the parody and stuff was all there. I did laugh at parts of it, but I felt like this was more Lobo than Howard. Yeah, the insanity and the goofy things that was there, but I didn't feel any of that real emotion. You know, Jesse, we did the She-Hulk storyline that Steve Gerber wrote where she teamed up with Howard, and there's a panel in that where Howard realizes who the villain is, and there's this look of genuine fear on a Donald Duck parody's face.
Right.
And it's just, I mean, the thing about Howard, aside from being ridiculous and hilarious, is he's like one of the most human characters. You can so totally relate to him. There's a lot of fun, clever stuff. I love how he literally blows up the Amalgam universe here. There's all kinds of tongue-in-cheek goofiness. I just didn't connect with it. I don't remember Howard being this oversexed.
Yeah.
Now, for a long time, I thought that one scene in the movie aside, that Howard and Beverly were basically platonic life partners. It wasn't until, and now I've never read the mature reader's Howard the Duck because I didn't know how great Howard was when it was coming out. And now I haven't been able to find it. Knowing my taste, I'm probably better off not reading it. But it wasn't until Chip Zdarsky's series where it really delved into how much Howard and Beverly care about each other. I mean, I don't want to think about what almost happened in the movie, but it's not a physical based love. It's way deeper than just physical attraction or anything. He did a great job with that. That's what disappointed me, I guess, is there felt like more Lobo and less Howard. But the art's great. The gags with the impossible dog transforming into unamalgamated characters and Lobo complaining that he's breaking the laws of continuity. That stuff was funny. It was enjoyable. I wish I had gone back and read about the kidney lady. I vaguely remember her, but maybe that would have felt more Howard ish to me. I did recognize Jonas Turnip, the Space Turnip, and then Beverleen. I'm not very familiar with Arlene from the Lobo comics, but Beverleen's outfit here calls to mind her first appearance when she was dressed up like some D&D damsel in the clutches of Pro Rata, the financial wizard. So that does recall some of that. It was fun, just wasn't quite what I was looking for or expecting.
This is Alan Grant. Most of what came before for Alan Grant was Lobo related. I mean, Lobo, Death and Taxes, Lobo, Demon Halloween, and the actual ongoing series. He was writing that. He did a good bit of Batman prior to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably why you're seeing he's wrote Lobo enough. No experience with Howard the Duck from what I can see prior to this, but doesn't mean he hadn't read any.
And, another thing I always remember about Howard is I forget who said this, but somebody described Howard as one of those characters that it's just not the same if they're not written by the original creator. Like, I mean, I know a lot of people have written Elektra, but I think some people still feel like if it ain't Frank Miller, it's not really Elektra.
Right.
And like I said, I love Zdarsky's Howard the Duck. I felt like he came close, but that may be part of it. If it ain't Steve Gerber, it's not full Howard. And in fact, there's an unofficial crossover where Gerber claims to have stolen Howard back from Marvel.
Yeah.
So you could make the argument that a lot of the Howards we've seen aren't Howard, but I'm not going
there. Sometime we need to do the Marvel team up. Are you referring to the Marvel team up issue and the Destroyer Duck Savage Dragon?
Yes. Yeah.
That's like a two-parter that is where Gerber kind of underhandedly stole him away from Marvel. In his eyes.
I didn't understand what was going on because I read that before I read a lot of the Howard stuff. And then I found out about I have that Destroyer Duck Savage Dragon issue, but I haven't read it. It's in one of my to read stacks. I tracked that down once I found out about it.
Duly noted. We'll have to put it on the agenda at some point.
I checked.
Go ahead.
I checked the web page and no link for the Hawk amalgam, so we can only assume it's Hawkman and Darkhawk. I'm going to stick with that.
Gotta be. It's gotta be.
Sadly, Chris, I did find it. Yeah, sorry. I wanted it to be Darkhawk too, but it is Hawkman and Nighthawk, which makes sense because the Offending Society is a mix of Defenders and Justice Society.
Bummer.
Well, that just means the Darkhawk amalgam is still lurking somewhere. He survived whatever crisis this was.
I read the second Hawk as Darkhawk. That's who the Offending Society I want more of. I want to see Hawk. The one that really jumped out to me was Vicky Valkyrie, which is a mashup of Vicky Vale and Valkyrie.
Oh, wow.
Two more disparate characters. They're both blonde and female.
That's it.
I have a soft spot for the Defenders, so I've always liked Valkyrie. I like the mix of Valkyrie learning about humanity, not quite remembering Asgard or Earth, and being an investigative reporter.
The high-tech gravity lab patsies were pretty funny.
Oh,
that was.
See, there I was complaining. That felt very Gerber-esque.
Yeah. All the kids, and you guys are like, kids, what are you talking about? No, what I'm talking about is Kid Knee. Where he's going through the book and he's reading all the kids. Kid Armpit, Kid Around, Kid Stuff, the Waco Kid, the Wacky Kid, Kid Knee, as in Knee, Buck Neckhead, Kid a Kidder, Kid Calamity, Kid You Not, and Kid Zaris. Kids Are Us. Kids Are Us? Is that what he's doing? Kids Are Us? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, but no Kid Lay. So that was pretty funny. I think I enjoyed this because the humor was over the top. I expected Alan Grant to bring some of that to the forefront. Usually it's a lot more, there's definitely some violence in this, but Lobo is more violent in my opinion. Lobo the Duck was more like, oh, we are going to take this stuff and there'll be a little bit of violence, but more it's just going to be really, really silly. And I liked it. I mean, I think that it was hilarious. Ambush Bug. Or actually, what was his name again?
Ambush the Lunatic.
So what do we know?
Which I thought was an obscure Defenders villain called Lunatic, but there's actually another more cosmic and comedic Marvel character called Lunatic that was just like Lobo, co-created by Keith Giffen.
Oh, really? Interesting. And Man, the way you were describing some of the stuff that happens in the book was just cracking me up. You know, how he's looking at his reflection and he scares his reflection. That was silly. A lot of this is like, okay, here's a joke for this page. Here's a joke for that page. And I think that's what I was looking at. I was having a good time. I loved how Beverly whooped him one time and then she happens upon him the second time and he's in the same situation and she starts whooping on him again. So I thought that was pretty funny. But all in all, for myself, I enjoyed it. I had a good time. That was all my notes. Chris, you got any notes?
So yeah, I liked it overall. I liked the art quite a bit. Val Samix, how did you decide? How did you land? What did you land on there?
I just kept going.
I wonder if he's the guy that did a lot of work with Grant, but I liked the art in this. It's very Looney Tune-ish, which is appropriate for Howard the Duck amalgam. A lot of these amalgams are lost on me because I don't think I've ever read a Howard the Duck comic or a Lobo comic in my life. I've read stuff that they appear in, but never their own stuff. Speaking of which,
most of them online if you want any clarifications.
Okay, well, yeah, I did know Dr. Bongface. I knew that one, but about it. This is a real like Infinity Crisis level event. He just survived, I guess. Would have been nice to have seen what happened before, but I guess that kind of fits with the meta, like weird, goofy book this is. I liked Lobo's. My favorite line was when he's talking to the ladies, avert those cutesy eyes, cutesy pies, which I got a chuckle out of for some reason. Lobo's definitely got some chompers on him that we get to see when he goes to town on that arm. My favorite bit in the book was the poor unnamed Stiff and Ron, who are basically the red shirts of the comic.
Right.
It's okay. You can turn the page. Forget about me.
I thought it was fun. It's probably middle of the road for the amalgam books, maybe even on the lower end, but still fun exercise and what was a great experiment. I will say on the letters page, nothing of note. The most noteworthy thing was that it was just called Lobo the Duck. There was no funny name for the letters page. And all the letters were just people complaining about the book, basically.
They're like, well, why'd you send this to me?
Yeah. No.
There is a back page of Amalgam Nation, which is like, it's got little previews of all the books. And then Carwald's Corner. It's like a letter from the editor signed M.M. Carwald, which I'm going to assume is an amalgam of Mike Carlin and Mark Grunwald, who would have been editors around this time at the respective companies. But yeah, that's all I got.
Okay. One of the letters is from Alan Gerber, which has to be a combo of Alan Grant and Steve Gerber.
That's right.
And then there is one thanking them for producing such a wonderful comic for him to share with his twin 6-year-olds.
Okay. It's like, I remember reading that one too, and I was like, all right then. Kind of odd. I mean, is that referencing something, or is that just...
Well, I think it's probably just acknowledging, like, hey, this isn't for kids.
Buffy and Jody are twins. They're 6 years old and just the right age to enjoy a book like this.
Since I read them the first issue, all they do is scream and yell in the middle of the night. I go in their room and see their sweat-drenched faces and blankets pulled tight with excitement, unable to contain their youthful exuberance for the second issue.
Yeah, their first grade teacher showed me the wonderful renditions of my kids did in beautiful Crayola color of Lobo the Duck eviscerating the space turnip. Don't give that book to your kids. All right. Evan, did you have some notes there? Did you have anything else?
Oh, no, I rattled off all mine. I assumed when you asked me a question, you wanted me to, so... No, I think I've rattled on enough.
Then you can pick your favorite panel of this book you chose.
Well, I found the panel, I believe it's page 16, of Beverly whacking the crap out of Lobo the Duck.
Oh, it's a good one.
I mean, it's good art, and I can feel where she was coming from. I mean, I didn't totally dislike. I'm not trying to rag on the book, but he had it coming.
What? Go to page 18.
Okay.
All right. And why are there a bunch of letters and numbers? Let me set the scene for everybody here. So this is Gold Kidney Lady, who is apparently in some type of stadium. And she says, all rise in the presence of the splendor and majesty of Gold Kidney Lady. Now, why is she standing on top of a bunch of letters and numbers?
Clearly, she took over the stadium during a Sesame Street themed halftime show.
I don't understand. What is going on?
But there is a B12, so Since she's
Which is
talking about properly functioning kidneys, I'm wondering if it's a vitamin reference, but that's the only combination I see in there that makes any kind of sense.
I assume this would make sense maybe to diehard Howard or Lobo readers, but I have no idea.
Yeah,
I don't know what it's supposed to mean, but I gotta say it feels a little like classic Howard somehow.
right.
I can't put my finger on it, but
All right. Well, okay. I've got to pick something now. So
that wasn't your panel?
no, I'm not picking that. It had me wondering earlier while you guys were talking, and I was like, what the heck is going on here?
Hear that, Chris? His mind wandered while we were talking.
No surprise.
You guys are lucky I'm awake right now. I'll tell you that. I'm picking the one. Chris
All
was
right,
gonna pick.
Grandpa, pick your panel and go to bed.
Chris was going to pick the one with the guy that got his face fried, and I'm taking it. So eat that, Chris. I'm taking, what's his name, Ron? Yeah, Ron. So long, Ron. Ron, where he's laying on the floor and he's telling us to just go ahead, bleeding to death on a hostile world. Go ahead and turn the page. So there you go. That's my panel. What do you got, Chris?
I always appreciate love for the disposable red shirts. So I like that.
All right.
I was debating between that one and what I was really leaning towards more was page 8. I've already kind of mentioned the chompers. So panel 3 on page 8.
Nice.
When he's taking a chomp out of, what was it, ambush something?
Lunatic.
Ambush the lunatic.
Ambush. I'm going to go with that.
Have either of you guys ever read any Ambush Bug?
No.
No.
Okay. I want to read some Ambush Bug. I've heard it's pretty funny. I'd like to get in and read some of that sometime.
I think my only real experience with Ambush Bug is when he was part of the Justice League for 5 seconds during 52.
Oh, yeah. Good pick there, Chris. All right, we did it, guys. That was all 3 issues that we chose of Amalgam Comics. Anything left unsaid, guys, that you want to get out there before we get into plugs?
You mean Unspoken?
How did I miss that? How did I miss it?
One thing I kind of forgot about, they do have several asterisks referencing Bat Thing issues where previous appearances of Lobo the Duck. Bat Thing #1 is still the elusive Amalgam issue for me. I bought all of the initial run when they came out, and then when Wave 2 came around, I skipped Lobo the Duck, Generation Hex, and Bat Thing. I have since found Generation Hex and Lobo, but I've never read or owned a copy of Bat Thing #1, so maybe in the future.
Trapped in a world.
I might have to go back to that shop and see if that box of amalgams is still there.
Yeah, no kidding. I didn't even know it was. I had no idea. Oh, there it is. Yep. I didn't know it was an Amalgam issue. Now I recognize that cover. Interesting. All right. Let's get into plugs here. Evan Bevins, I'll let you go first here, man. What do you got going on at *51?
Well, if you want to get even more of my thoughts on Amalgam Comics without having to listen to my voice or these other guys butting in, you can check out *51.blogspot.com. Hey, Evan, why don't you come onto my podcast? Sure, and I'll insult you both. *51.blogspot.com. I'm working my way through the amalgams. Also, occasionally check in on some of the stuff that I've grabbed and stacked up on Free Comic Book Day, #Free Comic Friday. Also, occasionally watch and write about movies, often from Dollar Tree. Although I have been working my way through the X-Men franchise with my oldest, and that inspired a post coming up soon. All my posts on these issues should be out by the time this episode airs. I've also read through and wrote about Just Imagine Stan Lee creating the DC Universe and the greatest Marvel 90s series that nobody talks about, Secret Defenders.
Love it. Just looking through, I'm scanning through this Bat Thing issue. It looks really good. Like,
who are the creators?
Larry Hama wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recognize the penciler. I'll read the name here. Rodolfo DiMaggio. Inked by Bill Sienkiewicz. It's almost like a Gotham Central type issue because it starts out like Bat Thing has killed somebody and Renee and what's the other guy's name? Yeah, Bullock are trying to track down the Bat Thing. It actually looks pretty decent. It reminds me of a noir type story. Maybe we'll keep that in mind, put it on the list. Chris Armstrong, tell them all about what's going on over at Small Screeners.
I do a movie podcast with my buddy AJ called Small Screeners, where we talk about made-for-TV and direct-to-video movies. And we also have another one called Because Movies, where we cover just whatever we want movie-wise. So you can find those on your podcatcher of choice.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Unspoken Issues podcast, where we discuss 90s comics. If you get a chance, you can go back into the archive and check out over 100 episodes here on the Source Material Comics channel. We also have the Source Material Comics podcast on this channel, where pretty soon Evan and I are going to be discussing Booster Gold, the third volume of the Jeff Johns run. All right there, Evan?
It's after the Jeff Johns run.
Okay, so it's after
transitioning into the next run. Good stuff. Time travel hijinks ensue.
Jeff Johns did a Booster Gold run
right after 52. It was called 52 Pickup. Started out like a superhero Quantum Leap in the DC universe.
Okay,
it's beautiful.
John, so I'll check it out.
Absolutely.
They've got a good chunk of it on Hoopla.
Okay.
So you can check that out. That should be airing here pretty soon, or it's in the archives. Myself and Evan Bevins get together once a month and discuss all the happenings with Marvel Snap, that mobile card game that you can find and download and have a good time with. Marvel Snap. And about once a month, me and Evan drop about 4 20-minute episodes where we either talk about the previous season, the upcoming season, what we had experience-wise, what we experienced during the season we had just, or during the last month that we had just played. And, of course, we bring our top fives. We have a top 5 covering just about anything we could think of with Marvel Snap there. So check that out. All right, we are out of here. We are amalgamed out. That over there is Chris Armstrong. Over there is Evan Bevins. I'm Jesse Starcher. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. Unspoken Issues is part of the UnspokenDecade.com, the home for 90s comics, blogs, and podcasts. Unspoken Issues also has a Facebook group you can join if you are interested. Just search the Unspoken Issues podcast and request to join. All of this would not be possible without W2Mnet.com, so make sure to seek them out for more podcasts. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please feel free to share, and we look forward to entertaining you again soon.